Hello and welcome to the Philippines. Today I'm going to update you on some news about the Philippines and a few other areas. Take you along on a Beep bus. Beep is the smaller, modern, air-conditioned buses. During the present crisis, I think they're mandated to keep their windows cracked at least 3 inches to allow airflow, fresh airflow. Because you have a closed space, you obviously have certain types of issues. Anyway, going to take you a little bit around. I'll point out a few items along the way, and you get to look at some places in Cebu City that you've probably never seen before on video. Anyway, for those of you watching some of my past videos, I got a comment the other day on probably a 2-month-old travel update, news update, and always look at the date of the video because that had some information in it that is no longer current. So the person was under the impression that he could just fly to the Philippines and get a visa stamp on arrival. That's not the case. Still is not the case. Here in September 2020. And I will, here in a little bit, I will give you some of my thoughts and projections about what's going to happen in the future. One thing that has happened there, Sinulog is a huge festival, probably one of the biggest festivals in the Philippines. The second and third week of January of each year. I've attended 4 of them. Great fun and huge crowds. But the question is, will they proceed with them here in a few months? September 1st, start of our Christmas season here. In fact, I was shopping yesterday. Got the quarantine pass that is very rare, difficult to get. Went shopping, and already Landers, the stores have their the heritage of Cebu monument there was on the left. Anyway, stores already have their Christmas decoration stuff out, starting to play Christmas music. But anyway, that they have not canceled the big festival. What they have said is they've put somebody in charge. The mayor has put somebody in charge. I think the vice mayor, who had been involved with it for many years, so he has experience with it. They're going to go forward with the planning of it, and nobody will know until the last minute what will really happen. Now here, September 1st, most of the Philippines has gone under a modified, what they call modified general community quarantine. In reality, not very much has changed. A few more businesses are allowed to open. I think even some gyms, those types of things are allowed to open. But one of the problems with these quarantines is that every LGU, local government unit, can set their own restrictions, their own rules. So you might be able to do something in your city, your town, but you cross the town borderline, you might not be able to do the same thing. Face masks and face shields are still required most places here. At Landers store yesterday, they have started requiring the face shield as well. Can't go in. This is the downtown, the oldest street in the Philippines, supposedly, Cologne Street in Cebu, downtown Cebu City. Interesting place to visit. And they've got Magellan's Cross down in that general area. A number of older malls down there. Colonnade right there. They've got the Metro. Several other mall type places, Unitop store down there. Anyway, they are starting to open up more tourism spots. They're allowing more hotels and resorts to open, which is all good, and they're only talking about domestic tourism. They're not talking about international tourism. Not even a hint that they're talking about that yet. But one of the major problems with the tourism is that they're still requiring the quarantine pass here in Cebu City anyway. So basically, yeah, we want you to go out and go to the hotels, go to the resorts, but you're not allowed because you need the quarantine pass, and you probably don't have a quarantine pass. Your building with 50 people only has 2 quarantine passes, and you're only allowed to have it for 2 hours. So there's pretty much, you know, the economy is going to just drag forward. Basically, it's not going to get back to normal very quickly with all the restrictions. And I understand the restrictions. I understand why they're making restrictions. I don't, not that I agree with all the restrictions, but it is what it is. Not my country. I sit here by my phone every day. Nobody calls me to ask for my advice. I do have a lot of advice, but I need to bite my tongue. I need to bite my tongue often. Jeepneys are still not allowed here, and you know, some of the information you read online on the newspaper online sites is not accurate either. One of the reasons I hate to give out too much information, because I read an article and they were saying jeepneys are not allowed in the Tri-Cities area, which is Mandaue City, Cebu City, and Lapu-Lapu City. Well, in fact, they are operating over in Lapu-Lapu City, have been for quite some time. And the information, the regulations can change through this next week or two. There will be different mayors and governors will come out with different proclamations, and so the rules will change one way or the other. There is a lot of information online, and you know, I've been for months and months. I get up in the morning and I search the news sites here and around the world for information. I was very optimistic for 2, 3, even 3 months, starting in February and March, that things would get back to normal very quickly, that people would understand that it's something we have to work our way through. You can't shut down the world economy. Shouldn't shut. They can. They did. Shouldn't, I think. And more information is coming out that that the lockdown is killing many more people than the virus is. Some recent information came out, and I'm not going to quote it directly, but it's there were 3 or 4, I think, ABC News and several other news sites come out and cited that the CDC, Centers of Disease Control in the U.S., even come out with data saying that the vast majority of those who died of quote-unquote COVID actually had 1 or 2 other serious comorbidities. They had underlying health issues. So the actual death rate from the virus itself is actually extremely low. Here in the Philippines, even just taking their numbers, and there again, every country, every area counts numbers differently. Even their figures, you're at under 2% death rate, and that's assuming that everything is accurate. Even before this virus came out, I read an article saying that I think 1 in 3 or 30% of death certificates across the U.S., every state, every county in the state processes death certificates differently. Sometimes it isn't even a doctor. It's an attending nurse or whoever is there at the time. Might be an undertaker, and they just put down their best guess. So 1 in 3 is probably not accurate even before this virus came along. Now let me get into some of my predictions, projections. Like I said, I thought the economy was going to open up a couple months ago. I was very optimistic. But here we are in September already, and you've got travel issues. They are not issuing tourist visas yet, aren't even talking about it. There was a mention about it, I think, a month or so ago, but nothing ever happened. Married people, I know there's many of you who are married to Filipinos. For a while, you were allowed to come in, just show your marriage certificate. Apparently, people were printing fake marriage certificates and getting in. So now they make it mandatory that you have to get a visa from the Philippine embassy or consulate in the country that you live in before entering, and gotta fill out the forms.
Maguna ka sa 7-Eleven, naan makita ni dito. Bisag pila ra ilod. Oh, bisag pila ra. Ya nagpalulu mahurot ng soda na. So 20, pila man gyud ang regular nga kwan. Kung balik na ta sa normal, kwan ra man to double 30 ra no, basic ta 950. 950.
And they were talking about those cards. They're trying to get away from cash, so they're selling those cards. I think 200 pesos, about $4 US. The rides on these buses during the crisis is 20 pesos per ride, and it will go back after the crisis back to 9.5 pesos per ride after that, which it was prior to the medical crisis. Anyway, this is Cebu Business District, pretty much owned and operated, managed by AYALA Corporation. They've got their big AYALA Mall in the center of it. Many different condominiums. A couple of the oldest high-rise condominiums that were built in Cebu City are here. I've done at least, for those of you who don't know, I've done a lot of reviews of condominiums and a few subdivisions and resorts over the last 5 years here in the Philippines, and started doing that as real estate agents would grab me in the mall and say, come and look at my condominium right now, and I always carried a camera with me and would put some information up, and I was surprised that many expats were interested in that type of thing, so I continued to do it. I was also interested in real estate and have come close to biting and buying something, but right now, and I'll do a different video soon about real estate prices, what they're doing here in the Philippines, especially Cebu City and some of the surrounding areas. Making some major adjustments, it seems. Rents as well as purchase prices. I think there's going to be a major correction. I think that there's going to be a lot of motivated buyers. OFWs, overseas Filipino workers, are big investors in these units, and maybe 10% of the 10 million overseas Filipino workers have lost their jobs overseas, or headed back to the Philippines, and maybe wanting to get out of those investments that they've had for a number of years. Anyway, I predict that. I think don't have any solid evidence, but I just think that by the end of the year, by the Christmas season, by December, mid-December at least, that some international flights will start back into the Philippines. Just my feeling. I don't have any solid evidence. And I think they're going to try to push through the Sinulog, the big festival in January, and that it will continue to open up more and more. And possibly because of the vaccines coming online, even though there's some issues with vaccines, even for the flu virus, tend to be, I think, on average about 42% effective, something like that. Anyway, that's my prediction. Will they be allowing you to get a tourist visa on arrival, like they have in the past for people from many countries, where you just fly into the Philippines, they stamp your Your passport with 30-day visa? Don't know. Perhaps you will have to apply for a visa at a consulate in your country before you're permitted to get that. We'll just have to wait and see. There's a big domestic tourism, surprisingly adds a lot to the economy here, but my understanding so far from what I've read is that domestic tourism is pretty flat. You know, got a couple of factors. Number one, most of the people have been out of work for 4 or 5 months, so they don't have money to spend. Number two, perception is reality. They've been scared to death. They're afraid to go out, and they're not going to travel out and spend money for fear that they're going to run out of money, again, what little money they have, and of getting the virus someplace by traveling. So I think that eventually somebody will say, hey, maybe we need to start international tourism. There are tens of thousands of employees who work for the resorts who cater to tourists from Korea and China and all the Western countries. You know, all the Western countries, the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, make up a huge percent of, you take those together and look at those compared to the ones from Asia, you know, Korea, Japan, it's a very big proportion of those, and it becomes a little bit difficult. That AVENIR condo just on the left there, that's kind of like a business condo. You can even buy you can buy the fold up beds that when the bed folds up, you can have somebody working and living there. Bed folds up, turns into a desk or a love seat type thing. I did a video about that, in fact, when it was under construction. To the right there, the Sentinel, an older condominium, bigger units. It is an older unit. They have space up on top to land 2 helicopters, and you can even go up there and sit at night or during the day. Nice view of the city. If you have more than 2 helicopters, you're out of luck. You can only fit 2 up there. A couple of other things in the news, and I'm not going to get involved in Philippine politics. That's just too dicey a situation, and a foreigner shouldn't do that anyway. PhilHealth, the nation-run PhilHealth health system and the health insurance, has been in the news every day, and there's some corruption that is going on. Money has been disappearing. Favorite hospitals, friends in certain hospitals have been getting big influxes of money from PhilHealth, apparently, those types of things. So there's a big investigation. Many of the PhilHealth executives have been forced to resign. So we'll see what happens to that in the future. They're in tough way financially, apparently. The dairy industry right now, very little fresh milk on the shelves. I occasionally find some milk from a dairy down in northern Mindanao, and I've used that. Good milk. And occasionally, I think up the mountains outside of Cebu City, going over to the west side, there's a dairy up there. You can even buy goat milk, goat cheese, and dairy cheese. But anyway, I think the Philippine dairies put out less than about 10% of the milk here. Almost everything comes in ultra high temperature treated and sits on shelves forever. You know, because they've cooked it at such high temperature. It doesn't need refrigeration, just sits on the shelves. You occasionally will find those boxes in the cooler, even though they don't have to be there. But anyway, there's been a push to try to get more local milk out, some government programs, but it's very slowly increasing, I think. If you want to get into the dairy business, that might be a good job for you. Down in Mindanao, there was about a week ago, there was twin bombs. Twin bombs went off down there in that the Muslims who are aligned with the Abu Sayyaf type down there set off a couple bombs, killed I think about 15 people, dozens more people wounded in that, and so that war down there continues. And as far as masks and shields, even though that we have gone into a new, more lenient quarantine period, pretty much all the same rules apply. You need the Q pass. More and more you're needing to wear masks everywhere, and even now shields. Many places you didn't used to have to wear shields. There has been articles in the paper about what's happening to these shields. What's happening? You're seeing them laying on they're garbage now. They're supposed to be one use. Well, in reality, many people are reusing those masks, and so then even after one use, technically they become biohazards, but people are just tossing them in the regular trash. So some politicians have come out and stated, well, you need to cut that mask in half now. You need to put it in a separate plastic bag, mark it as biohazard, so that the garbage people know how to handle it. I'm certain that isn't happening. In fact, I'm certain that most people are wearing those masks many times. In fact, I've noticed it, and a friend of mine who works in security, who watches many cameras, says yes, people are touching their masks, and you can even see that they're dirty oftentimes because they've used them many days, and they aren't going to throw them away. Their company says she showed me a mask. She says we use it for 2 weeks. They wash it, do whatever they do, and I watched a technical video or an article the other day and said even they've tried various different types of reusing masks, using ultraviolet rays and ozone spray, different things to clean different types of masks, and most of them after 1 or 2 cleanings their effectiveness goes down substantially. So washing the masks, trying to reuse them, probably creates a worse issue than if you didn't even have one on. Appears to be what the science says. You see many people wearing the mask with the little ventilation thing to help you breathe more easily, and that's like the N95 mask. It lets the air exhale out, and they've done some tests now with laser type testing equipment. They said that actually all the virus particles are actually exiting that and not helping anybody, not helping contain that virus at all, as it's going out to everybody around you. And I used one yesterday. That's what I used because it was easier to breathe through that. Anyway, I will be doing I've got a long list of topics about different videos I'm going to do, and that I think many of you will be interested in during this month and additional months. And anyway, Cebu City, I've seen different figures for the population here. My opinion is it's a small, densely populated city. And they've got a number of infrastructure projects going on. They've got a loop around the foothills from the south to the north that is planned in the coming years. They're trying to buy up certain properties at the present time. I'll do another video about that some later time. Anyway, they've got 3 very large malls. You've got many other smaller malls, so depending upon the area of the city, you've got several large public markets where you can buy fresh meats and vegetables, fruits, and you have many neighborhood public markets like farmers markets where where you can buy all your fresh fruits and vegetables. Most of even your older, smaller malls have a hardware store in them, have a food store in them, a grocery store, and clothing stores, your phone stores, all that type of thing. So you've got a number of hospitals and schools and universities, colleges spread throughout the city. So it is an interesting city. That there's a beep bus right there, similar to the one that my friend is riding, taking this video.
Basin kuan, ugma, Amazing Philippines. Pero unsa man ni nag social distancing pa nga wala na. Mora na ilahang gikuan. So pila ra man jud ka pasahero ang makuha ninyo? 13 sao na pila? Kuan, sa normal ra 50. Lo grabe sa. Ada barog.
So they asked her what the camera was for, and she said, well, the Amazing Philippines channel. And anyway, you can see how they've rearranged the seats in here. Normally they would have 35 or 50 people in a bus like this, I think. But they have, to get social distancing, I think, 13 people are allowed to be in there at one time. And this is the terminal up in the north end of Cebu City. I think it's up in Talamban, I believe, and that was kind of where she got off. She took the long ride around, bought that card, and so you just touch it and you pay for your ride there. There still are not near enough buses for the people needing to move around, so more and more people are buying bicycles. Bicycles got killed by a vehicle the other day. The first time I've read of that, but I predicted it a month or so ago. And it's just naturally going to happen. You have more bicycles, and some cities are talking about setting up more bicycle lanes as well as walking lanes. And because there's not enough transportation, many people are having to walk long distances. And that's a discussion for Filipinos some other time. I'm not going to get involved in that discussion. Bite my tongue. People selling the plants and stuff over there with their little kind of hardware store, they were saying, yeah, they've been open for over a month, but no customers, nobody's spending money. They're using all their money just to buy groceries to survive. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, safe travels when you can travel, and I'll see you next time.